So, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Dare Dallas webinar. For those of you that joined us last week with Colin Fraser for the whiskey webinar, many thanks for all your patience. It is now, however, official that Rachel does actually know more about whiskey and did so in approximately 8 minutes prior to the starting of the webinar than I possibly have in about 20 years of looking at it. So we have to take our hats off to her. Strangely, we did actually have quite a long conversation about it afterwards as to whether women actually like drinking whiskey. So answers on a postcard or comments on the link, and we might be working on something for the future with that. Now, you may have noticed that this webinar is actually recorded. Again, this week is rather hectic as bookings are flying in. And we're actually here today again with our own little gem, Mary Waterfall. So thank you for joining us, Mary. So actually, Mary, the first question should probably be, do you like drinking whiskey?
Yeah, I do have a little dram now and again.
Worth asking, considering we were kind of on the subject matter. Now, this week, Mary, we're here to talk about designer jewellery, and you've obviously put out a few articles in the past few weeks talking about it and some of your favourite brands. Now, the first one we're going to get onto, I think, is Tiffany, which is possibly one of the best known brands and one that you've obviously spent a lot of time with. So Tiffany, iconic in so many different ways, but what is it that draws people to them, do you think?
Well, for me, Tiffany's played a big part in my story, as it were. I saw the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's when I was 16. That was my feel-good movie through my 20s. As Audrey Hepburn says it, when you've got the mean reds and you're feeling afraid, but you don't know what you're afraid of, then there's nothing better than just going to Tiffany's and just looking through that window and having breakfast at Tiffany's. And I actually worked at Tiffany's. So I obviously I worked in the fine jewellery department. So I, saw the beautiful jewellery of like Jean Schlumberger and their higher, their higher quality jewellery. But I also just saw the furor to get their silver jewellery as well on the first floor. Christmas time, the queues used to be absolutely nuts. Everybody wanting their silver open heart necklace. So I think with designer jewelers, it's kind of a personal preference. It's a story. Because for you, Alistair, if you were to buy something for your wife, which jeweler would you go to?
Well, strangely, because when we were planning for this earlier, I actually thought about this, because we had this chat about where would you go and what's in your family heritage. To be perfectly honest, I had absolutely no idea whatsoever. So I actually went and looked at my wife's engagement ring, which I didn't actually buy. I hate to say it, it came down the line. And that was from Cartier. So I think that's where I would go, because I think there seems to be some kind of heritage there. Whether or not that's applicable, I don't know. But I think you've obviously have this strong connection with Tiffany, and is that where you would go potentially?
I don't know if I would go there now. I think I love Tiffany's, but I don't know now if I had a choice. I think maybe I would go more probably to Graff or to Van Cleef and Arpels. Just there's something magical, just that, the gemstones that they use and the quality of their techniques. I think what I've learned now being in the jewellery profession for so long, I'd maybe be drawn more there. But as in my 20s, I would say definitely, it would be Tiffany's.
I think when we're talking about Tiffany, I think there's the side of it that you discussed with the silver jewellery, which in the past, 20 years, maybe slightly longer, has become obviously one of their big sellers, and I think what a lot of people associate with it. But obviously there's incredibly high-end stuff. And I'm just going to bring up a photo here of one of the most, best known pieces, obviously, that you can probably talk to us a little bit more about.
Yeah, so this is the Tiffany diamond, which they acquired around the 1870s, the world's largest yellow diamond. I think originally when it was rough, it was around 284 carats, cut down to 128 carats. So it's pretty large. And it's only actually been worn publicly 3 times. The first was in the 50s by Mary Waterfall to a ball. Secondly, it was worn in the 1960s by Audrey Hepburn in all the marketing for the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's. And then to celebrate Tiffany's 175th anniversary, it was actually reset in a necklace of 100 white diamonds, and that was worn by Lady Gaga to the Oscars in 2019. So yeah, I mean, quite a, an amazing diamond.
It's clearly, I mean, it's a stunner and an iconic piece. How would you even go about valuing something like that?
Well, yeah, there's a good question. You would have to do a lot of research. I don't really think they would be much around to compare it to. So yeah, it would be lots of conversations with stone dealers, and yes.
Could it be? We're probably getting on for one of the most valuable diamonds in the world, surely.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of other big diamonds around, but yeah, that one, definitely is a contender.
With the heritage and with everything that goes with it, obviously, I imagine that would play a big part in that. Now, obviously, Tiffany, one of the greats, but moving on to another one of the greats that we have actually just briefly touched on, is of course Cartier. Now, Cartier. Is it fine jewellery? Is it a heritage brand? I mean, are people going there because of the heritage, or is the quality that incredible that people are buying it because of that?
I think I mean, obviously it does have the heritage, but it does really have the quality as well. It got the royal warrant in the 1900s, and it was known as the jeweler of king and the king of jewelers, and it definitely does have this quality to it. But again, it's brilliant marketing. It's it's designs like, I think you're going to show us the love bracelet quite soon, aren't you?
Yeah, let's have a little look at this. And this is something that I see on kind of quite regular occasions, and it is a really popular, user-friendly piece of jewellery, isn't it?
Yeah, so this is, it's just the whole idea. It's like a cuff that you actually screw onto your wrist, and you get a little screwdriver as well, and it's marketed with the strap line. If, how far would you go for love? So yeah, it is a popular design. It was introduced in the 1970s. And I think maybe what a lot of people forget, that maybe they got one in the 1990s or the 1980s. Is it up to date with the current prices? Because obviously the prices have changed, have gone up over the years, and so, people may not be aware that it's been around since the 1970s, and they've inherited one. So yeah,
and it's still a current model, still popular as ever.
Yes,
and still
popular.
And still in line with, I imagine, a lot of Cartier stuff. It's going up all the time in value, at least.
Yeah, that's the thing with Cartier jewellery. The vintage Cartier definitely holds its value. At auction, it goes for astronomical prices, and that is because of the quality of it, the craftsmanship, and the stones used as well.
I think you're right, actually. I think from what I've seen, it's just that name. It's like Rolex in the watch world. It is synonymous with just fantastic quality and great marketing, so it makes it appealing whatever age it is. I think that's the key to it. I know with watches, it's a very similar thing with the Cartier watch. Even a Mou de Cartier watch that is a quartz movement and not particularly brilliant, because of the name on the dial, it's still pretty valuable. Now, when we're talking about that end of Cartier, obviously there's the other top end of Cartier, and we'll just go on to something here that you know a little bit about Mary. So talk us through the panther.
Yeah, so the panther emblem, so that is kind of an iconic design associated with Cartier, and it was really brought to the fore by quite a formidable lady, Jeanne Toussaint, when she designed a brooch for Wallace Simpson, and it really brought this panther, you know, to life. You know, it's just an emblem of power and of femininity. So yeah, and that really has stuck with Cartier, and it is still a really strong part of their range, and it really is a beautiful design, I think.
So it's been a current model of Cartier for, well, best part of 100 years then, really.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
And still popular as ever, no doubt.
Yeah. And yeah, there's, and Jeanne Toussaint, she sounds like quite an amazing person who used to just walk around like the design rooms with this long fur coat on, a bit like a panther herself. She sounds like quite incredible when you read about her. But yeah, just an emblem of strength and of power, which I think does go with, you know, it's synonymous with the Cartier brand.
Gosh, wow. It's a belter, isn't it? It is an absolute belter. Now, let's move on to something a little bit different in terms of what we have in terms of designer jewellery. Now, this is a house that possibly isn't as well known, but to me, the question, and I suppose one of the things about Graff is it always about the stones with Graff? Because they don't play on it, but it really is something they talk about a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, so I love the story of Graff. I mean, Graff's been around so like for 60 years, so it hasn't been around for the hundreds of years like Cartier and Tiffany. But the Graff story of Lawrence Graff for me is just so inspiring that like when he was 15, he went to work on the benches in Hatton Garden, and he was told that he wouldn't amount to anything. But he just had this vision inside him, this passion inside him for understanding like diamonds and gemstones. And he has gone on to build this amazing empire where they source the most incredible stones and then transform them into these incredible sculptural works of art. I mean, the picture you've got there is the Les de la Rona diamond, the Graff Lesedi la Rona. Forgive me if I've pronounced that wrong. And it's the world's largest square emerald cut diamond, weighing 302 carats. It took 18 months to cut this stone. I mean, you just imagine that. Imagine being the stone cutter working on this diamond, this incredibly expensive diamond, cutting it. I mean, oh my goodness, what a...
You certainly don't want to make a mistake, do you?
Exactly. Exactly. And it's the largest like highest color, highest clarity diamond ever certificated by the GIA. So it's, yeah, so I mean, you know, the
so was this produced for promotional purposes? Was it to sell? What was the meaning behind the Graff diamond?
I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure it would be for sale, but they just acquire, I mean, they've acquired loads of historical diamonds, and they've also sourced lots of, you know, very rare, especially like colored diamonds. You've got the Graff pink, it's a vivid pink, internally flawless, 23 carats.
Another good example of some nice yellow diamonds, seeing as we can move on from the Tiffany yellow diamond. So, but again, in the way these things are set, it looks to me, at least from somebody that's not a jewellery expert, but it looks to me as though they really focus on the stones and then work around the stones. So the settings are all kind of to maximise the, you know, the show of the stones.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I mean, they work with the most incredible stones, and obviously they have you know, their amazing techniques that they keep under wraps for producing their jewellery. But you know, some of their pieces are just incredible. They are just like sculptural works of art. You know, if you get the opportunity to walk past a Graff window, the Graff window on Bond Street, there's always like an amazing display, and it does take your breath away.
I think we've got another stunner here, actually, Mary, which we'll just bring up now, which again, you're going to get noticed if you're wearing that, aren't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I had the privilege earlier in the year of valuing a Graff ruby and diamond necklace and earring set, and it was just beautiful, and you could just feel the quality of it. A very special piece, a present for a 40th wedding anniversary. I would be very happy with that myself.
You've got a little while to go yet, though, Mary. I hasten to that. But again, a lovely piece. So moving on from Graff, now we move on to a house which, again, possibly not as well known, but still, you know, in the higher echelon, certainly. Now, Van Cleef and Arpels, let's have a bit of an overview on this, and, you know, considered by many to be the toppermost of the jewellery hierarchy, so to speak. Let's have an overview on that, and what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so Van Cleef and Arpels they're just quite a magical. Their jewellery really is just quite magical, and it's got this beautiful love story behind it of how the daughter of a precious stone dealer married the son of a stone cutter, Estelle Arpel and Alfred Van Cleef, and then they combined their passion and then went on with other members of their family to open up their jewellery store in 1906, and just to create this brand that is just, they, you know, incorporate, as lots of other jewelers do, you know, just, you know, using nature and just, but their designs are just really magical and enchanting, and they, you know, often have little functions, that, you know, hidden function. They've brought out recently a watch, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like it's a butterfly watch, and the wings actually move.
I have actually, yes, I've seen it. It's not usually my cup of tea with watches, but it's certainly complicated as you can get, and an incredible work of craftsmanship, certainly. This, I would say, from my experience of Van Cleef and Arpels, is possibly one of their most iconic designs, would you say?
Oh yes, the Alhambra. So yes, so inspired by the four-leaf clover, that, you know, the Moorish symbol that you can see a lot of when you visit the Alhambra Palace in Granada in Spain. And yeah, I mean, this is very iconic, a very iconic design that's associated with Van Cleef and Arpels. Symbol of luck, love, and fortune, and good health, which is something that we would all like to enjoy. But yeah, this was.
Well, I think I'd quite like all of those things, really, to be honest, Mary. But yes.
So this design was launched in the late 1960s. And they use different materials to make the clover. So there you can see they've got malachite and diamonds, but they also use coral, mother of pearl, you know, lots of different materials. And yeah, it's again, it's a very popular design that lives on today.
No, it's a fascinating piece, and a fascinating, again, you know, story with regards to Van Cleef and Arpels. I didn't know that, actually, so it's a nice example of a great story. Now, let's just have a look at the last photo I'm going to bring up, Mary, and then I want to have a little chat with you about how prices have moved around with these type of things. So just talk us through this last photograph, and you've spoken about this in your article a little bit, haven't you?
Yeah, so I actually got to value one of these towards the end of last year. It's the Ludo hexagon bracelet, and just, you know, the feel of it. It's an articulated bracelet with, you know, diamond set all the way around, and then obviously the diamond set buckle at the front, and it really does just exude quality and majesty. So Van Cleef and Arpels, they have this really playful side, but then they have this, you know, more traditional kind of majestic side to their jewellery design as well. And there is a Ludo bracelet in their current range, but this kind of dates more from around 1935. So vintage, just like Cartier, vintage Van Cleef and Arpels does really hold its value, and in fact the value of this is more than the current Ludo bracelet in the present range.
It's interesting because that could be a modern piece, couldn't it? I mean, the style, the design of it, it could be 30s, it could be 60s, it could be 2020, because I think it's one of those pieces that is just ultimately very, very wearable.
Oh yeah, no, it really is a timeless piece, and just so beautifully made. Yeah, a real stunner.
Fantastic. Now, Mary, I want to just touch on prices of these items, because obviously that's why we're here. We've spoken before briefly about the way in which Tiffany operates and the way in which they obviously have certain sides to their jewellery. Obviously, there's a lot of things that I see on a daily basis, obviously, with some of their lesser quality jewellery, but obviously their top-notch stuff is still up there with the best. And I would imagine, in terms of value, is still skyrocketing.
Yeah, I mean, all the big brands, yeah, I mean, their prices, because the demand is there. I mean, even with Tiffany, I mean, I'm sure you see this as well at auction, even the silver pieces still go, and they're still, there are still multiple people bidding on them because they are so popular. The thing you've got to watch out for with that, obviously, is that it's not a fake.
I hate to say it, but they have been afflicted with this curse that is the fake market, unfortunately. Yeah. We do see that a lot, and unfortunately with such items such as the Tiffany bangles and the silver jewellery, it's a lot easier to fake than a 2-carat flawless diamond. So yeah. It's one of those things. But obviously, in the last 20 years or so, I think, with some of these big names, I think you mentioned it in your articles, that some of the prices of these have gone up ridiculous amounts, even in the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to have your documents up to date, because I've seen the history of like a particular like Tiffany items that have actually been valued by Tiffany's at regular intervals, and the jump in prices is just nuts. So yeah, it is so important just to keep them up to date, and it's not always predictable with the designer jewellery, because you're not, when it's kind of it's a diamond ring, not by a designer, you're looking at the diamond, at the metal and everything. But when you've got the designer factor, that kind of just introduces this a realm of unpredictability, really. So it's so important to get them professionally appraised and have an accurate valuation, because at the moment the trend is that they are continuing to rise.
Interesting. Now, thank you ever so much for joining us this afternoon, Mary, to talk about this. Now, we know that you worked in Tiffany. Are there any tales or stories you can tell us from your time at Tiffany, or anything that you actually got to handle or work with?
So I did manage to have breakfast at Tiffany's, which I was very excited because they did a talk of one of their designers on a Monday morning, first thing in the morning, over breakfast. So that was very exciting. And then obviously it's just, the meeting the celebrities that go in there.
Mary, here's a question for you. You already discussed your look of Tiffany's, but money, no object, any piece of jewellery from one of these houses, what would it be? From any period?
I don't know. I think I might go for a Van Cleef and Arpels, one of their quirky little designs, just that has a little function or a little butterfly flutter or just something like that. I think I'd maybe go for that, because I think that their designs are they're just very magical. That's where I'd go.
Fantastic, Mary. Well, that brings us to the close of today's webinar. So many thanks to Mary. And in fact, thank you to all the experts that have joined me and taken the time to join me in the last 12 weeks. Can you believe it's been 12 weeks? Taken technology, cameras, and me, kind of interviewing them and putting them on edge. It really has been an absolute joy most of the time. Thank you to everyone, most of all, that's actually joined us and watched these, whether it's just been, sending us a question or a remark, or even some technical advice, which has come in handy from time to time. Both Rachel, David, and obviously myself, thank you sincerely, and we really look forward to seeing you very soon. So from my guest Mary and from me, Alistair Meiklejohn, thank you very much and goodbye. Great, how was that?
Well, I think it was okay. I don't know.
You did fine. You did absolutely fine. Honestly, don't worry. It was absolutely fine. I'm totally happy with that.
Thank you. I might have to go and have a whiskey now.
I don't know what you're worried about, honestly. What I try to do is just to keep it flowing, and you did absolutely fine, Mary. So please don't worry at all. It was great.
Good. Thank you very much.
Are you joining us tomorrow for the chat?
No, I don't think so, because I'm on childcare duty, and the last time I tried to combine it, it was just absolutely crazy.
Oh, well, if you can join us just to say hello, please do so. But if you can't, don't worry. But I'll speak to you very soon, Mary. Take care.
All right then. Thank you. Yeah.
And Rachel has just said that we all miss you, which of course we do.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, no, I just got, homeschooling and everything else. It's all good fun.
Take care, Mary. Speak to you very soon.
Bye.